Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I'm joined by my good sis, Courtney, aka None of My Friends Watch Anime. We are doing a deep dive into episode 5, the penultimate episode of Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story. We really loved this episode because it explored the stories untold of women after they reach a certain age, which I felt like was kind of meta because the show Bridgerton is so based on these young women's love lives and their pursuit of marriage and motherhood and all of those things. But what happens to those women if they become widows, after they're married, after they've had kids, after their kids are out of the house? Even a woman who's a queen who's stuck in between being a widow and being someone who kind of maybe should move on with her life. This episode was really well done. 4, 5, and 6 were just chef's kiss anyway. So stay tuned. We're going to get into it. Be sure to slide in the comments and let us know what you think. Be sure to subscribe and share and let all the people know that we're over here talking about TV from a Black feminist perspective. I will be recapping And Just Like That once it premieres later this month in June. So be on the lookout for that, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.
So that rolls us over into episode 5. This episode was so important about just women's roles, women. We explore what's left of the life of a woman where she's widowed fully or partially, and also these women as mothers. Because if we think back to a time,
and as widows,
that's what I said.
Because like we get Violet, and then you have right.
But Violet was a full widow.
Right.
Queen Charlotte is a partial widow. Your husband
even what's the name grieving this episode too? Danbury.
This is her post Danbury dying. So there's really this full exploration of like the value of women as well. Once they have married, had children, and their children are married off, what's left of them. And I love Lady Danbury in like quote unquote present day, like her whole monologue about like their stories being untold and how they're just kind of forgotten about. Like women of a certain age are just kind of forgotten about. And I know that like when I was coming up, age is such a relative thing. You think of a woman being like 30 as being so old when you're 10, you know what I mean? But I'm 35 and I still don't really feel grown.
No, at all. At all.
Like,
and you have like these 20-something-year-olds trying to make you feel old because you're like 35. Like I'm 36. I turned 36 in April, and like a lot of my community like is younger than me, and so it's just this whole like auntie talk, and it's like I'm not quite an auntie yet. I'm not there yet, right? Like I'm getting there with like the energy and all of that, but I'm not quite an auntie yet.
But it's
so
also,
like,
even if we are, what does that mean about us as women? We're still sexual beings. I have personally never felt like I've never felt or looked better in my life than right now. And I just don't feel like this should be wasted because I'm not 22. It just feels, it's very weird that people want women to feel done so early.
At a certain age. 100.
They want us
so
to
early.
feel done.
But you learn this as you get older though, right? Like we learned this as we got here, right? Because it's like it's easy for me to tell. Luckily, I had friends who were in their 30s when I was in my 20s, and they were telling me when I reached 30, I was going to feel a certain way. I was going to see myself as a certain way. And so it's like, I think it's easy for us to immediately think 30 is old if we don't have anybody out there who's in their 30s talking to us, right? Or like, because our parents, I mean, I know my mom wasn't having certain conversations with me.
I asked my
in
mom,
my 20s.
I asked my mom when she felt her best, and she said in her 30s after she divorced my dad, and she, it was the 3 of us, and she's like, I felt so good. And so I have been looking forward to my 30s around, I know it was like when I moved here, so maybe like 27. I think I maybe had that conversation with her when I was like 27 or 28. And I was just like, when did you start to feel it? So I have been looking forward to this part of my life,
Right.
And so yeah, there
Yeah.
is the benefit of that.
Mhm.
But I love the metaphor. First of all, okay, so all of Violet's kids are named after flowers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
one of her daughters' name is Hyacinth, and I think that's so
Mhm.
pretty. Um,
Mhm.
but
That's the one that's like feisty, right?
that's the younger one. Let's
Okay.
see the feisty one. She get on my foot.
I know.
Anyway,
She's a pistol.
she get on my nerves.
Right.
She gives white feminism. Anyway,
Hard body.
you
Hard
know,
body. Yeah.
um, I am absolutely obsessed with the metaphor of my garden is in bloom.
Yes.
I want my garden tended to.
My favorite line was, "I almost asked the footman to lay on top of me."
And my question was, and my
Why
question
didn't
in
you?
my mind was, baby, why didn't you?
Why didn't you? Why didn't you do it?
Because
And like
again,
the fact
the power.
yes. Mhm. Mhm. Because who was this lowly man that was gonna lay on top of me? But I also thought that it was interesting that they thought, when she asked first of all, their relationship, Lady Danbury and Violet's relationship is just so cute to me too. It's like it's interesting, but it's so cute because it's so like whistling or like whispering to each other, like in dark corners. And when she was like, "Do you think the queen has been bedded?" I was cracking up. So I really did like that whole metaphor of like my flower needs to be tended to because just because you're and I have this here, like just because your husband died, does that mean that you stay single forever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
they talked like you do.
Yeah. That's the expectation. When your husband dies, you die too, basically. And so okay, so Queen Charlotte, present day, quote unquote, Queen Charlotte has gathered every eligible woman in the near and far to marry these sons, and much to their chagrin. But we finally see her actually be a mother and show kindness the day of the wedding. And there's a glimmer of
Mhm.
hope where he's just
Mhm.
like, no, I'm coming to you like as a child who is afraid.
Yeah.
What if I can't do? And she actually is maternal.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is again like this episode was really exploring different types of motherhood. Violet
Mhm.
was a very hands-on mother. Lady Danbury was like, I sent my kids all across the world. They in different countries. And Charlotte's kids are right there, but there's no
Yeah.
closeness. These
Right.
are really different kinds of mothering.
Mhm.
Um, but I like that Agatha got Violet to say what she really wanted, and she
Oh,
said, "I
100.
want to be gardened as much as possible."
Mm. And then she said, what did she say? And that's when she said they were untold stories, right? Like they get to do like the men get to be talked about as having like all these kids and like, doing all these things and winning wars and being heroes and all this stuff. But like, what do they say about us? You're allowed to be a sexual being. You're allowed, like, you don't have to carry the shame of wanting to be held and to be loved and to like do those things. Like, it's okay to want to experience that intimacy, even as a widow. And I thought that that was interesting that they even had to have that conversation and it had to be hushed, right? Like,
Well,
they couldn't even have that open
look at what we're
conversation.
looking at present day with Janelle Monáe,
Hmm.
who's come out as non-binary and who
Yeah.
has been slowly revealing to us for a while who they are as a sexual being. And
Hmm.
I saw a clip today. Like I'm really happy that people are playing the evidence of them having always been, just because they're showing boobs
Always
now doesn't mean that anything is necessarily
is different.
different about them. And there's an interview of Janelle Monáe on, I want to say, Breakfast Club.
Hmm.
And it was about the formal like uniform kind of like suit attire
The
that she
tux
used
thing.
to wear. And
Mhm.
they were saying, I hate that that was used to pit women against each other as if I was some sort of symbol of like piety or purity or something because I wasn't
Mm.
showing off this part of my body. And they were like, that's not what I was trying to do.
Is it but do you remember when they were in, The Bodies video by CeeLo? Do you
No.
remember? Yeah, like, they were the main well, I think then Janelle might have been going by she, but they were up in that video as the love interest, And
Okay, I need
so
to go back
they
and watch.
were like like they were like
Yeah, and I'm gonna
bodies,
tell
right?
you
Like her
something.
body was there, right?
Let me tell
So
you something. Went to a Janelle Monáe concert. You know, I'm not a concert bitch, but
me
one of
either.
the first things that I did when I moved here, my friend took me to a Janelle Monáe concert, and it's so funny. Janelle Monáe has been, oh my God, this is just coming to me. Been like in the background of my life for a minute now. My first fashion week that I worked, I volunteered at CFDA, and one of the
Mhm.
fashion shows that I covered that I worked was Rebecca Minkoff. Janelle Monáe was the performer, and I was like, "Damn, this bitch puts on
Bad
a
one.
fucking show." So
Right.
fast forward, I move here, and my friend is like, "Oh, Janelle Monáe is performing at Fordham. I got tickets. Do you want to come?" And Janelle
Yeah.
Monáe did like a stage dive. I'm not joking. I'm telling you, me and Janelle Monáe had a moment.
Ah! What kind of
Like,
moment?
Janelle Monáe looked at me and I looked at her
Mhm.
like, have you ever been to a concert and you feel like the artist like sees you?
Oh, 100. They do a really good
Janelle
job at
Monáe
doing
saw
that.
me.
They
Huh?
do a really good job. They do a really good job of doing that. Of like, because I feel like I've had one of those moments with, get this, John Legend.
Get
I
off my
saw him in
phone.
concert.
We're done. Closing laptop.
You can talk to my cousin about it. I swear to God, that man was looking at me. And like and for some reason, his mom, it was like a little intimate concert, probably like SOBs or something. And like his mom was there too. And like, so she like saw me and my cousin and like waved to us too. And I'm like, how does this happen? How do you see people?
And
Right?
I
Like,
want to
how do
be
you,
clear, as your friend, of course he did.
of course, right? It's fine.
Of course he did.
Because
I
why wouldn't he?
think I think the sun shines out of all of my friends' asses. So I'm like, of course.
Of
Like
course he did.
as a super aside, when people talk about love bombing, after like so many years of therapy, right? And like getting to a place of like, I am a special unicorn in this world. I deserve everything. Someone love bombing me fully meshes with my self perception. I have a
With your
video.
aesthetic.
Yeah,
100.
with my aesthetic, with my self
Hmm.
perception, with my mindful self compassion, with my self confidence, with my self esteem.
However, you know the reality of the situation.
I'm not that delusional.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know the
For sure, but a person love bombing me is like, you absolutely should
very
be
on brand.
doing act grand gestures for me. Hello, you should.
100.
You should.
Yeah.
That meshes.
Same thing. No, I am completely with you because like usually when I'm getting love bombed, I'm like, ah, but it's like, no, that's not good. That's not something you should be wanting to be into.
Yeah, it's not normal.
So I would love for the love bombing to be not bombed, but like maybe little pellets dropped from the sky and not necessarily like atomic.
But
But yeah,
I love consistent small gestures with occasional big ones, but to show me
thoughtfulness.
thoughtfulness, to show me consistently that you hear and see me as
Hmm.
a person. And if you can keep that going, like that is sustainable. That is an investment. We have gotten so
Facts.
far off topic.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. We
No,
haven't
that's
though.
both of us. That's both.
We
This
haven't though,
okay.
because to quote Charlotte, love is determination. And so I do feel like I love that she said that though to her son. And in the at the end of that episode. And I also liked the sisterhood, even though they weren't Black women, the sisterhood between Lady Danbury and Violet, because this is when Violet sees the crown that her dad made her, right? And I thought it was interesting because at the very, very beginning of the episode, the opening sequence is a flashback between like Lady Danbury, the Queen, George, like but there was this split moment where I was like, is that Danbury and that white man? And we hadn't gotten to them yet. Like we hadn't seen them have their affair yet until into the episode. And I was like, okay,
It was at the
all right.
funeral. It was at the funeral, right?
Yes.
Where
And
you
they have
saw
like
him
that.
catch eyes.
Right, but then at the very, very beginning, there's a sequence of where she's looking up at the ceiling and she's having a flashback of like having sex with her husband. And then you see Charlotte and then you
Yeah.
see George having sex too.
Yeah.
And so like I was seeing these little flashbacks and then I saw someone and I was like, Is that I know that ain't who I think it is.
I know that
And
like
we and we hadn't gotten to them yet. And so then, like, later on to see them having, like, this little blooming affair of meeting each other, on each other's properties, having walks, having talks, and then, like,
I need to
later
say something.
having her garden planted, I thought was very interesting.
Hello. I love how so every day I do like an online crossword. I can't do like
Of
a physical
course.
because I'm not that smart. So every day I do like a online crossword, and there are like these really like easy kind of gimme ones that you see all the time. So
Mhm.
I learned these like random little words that I otherwise wouldn't have known, and I
Mhm.
heard like six of them in this
In
show.
the episode?
So
Oh, in the show?
when he says we a butt,
Yeah.
that like a join, like we adjoin
Huh.
next to each other. That's what a butt means. And
Okay.
even aria, that's like a opera solo. So
Yes, yes, yes. Mhm.
so
I
when
do know Aria.
um Violet says to Agatha, like, girl, I didn't ask you nothing about the queen. Watch the aria. Watch the see. Just go back to watch what we did. And I'm like, I like before I started doing crosswords, I would not have like picked up on that. But anyway,
Right.
um, I had feelings about okay, so back up. So in the past, Lady Danbury is now being kind of put in the same position that Charlotte was being put in, where you're the first. Now you're the first
Right.
of the newly
Right.
titled people to be widowed. How does this work? And she's like, shit, now I got to be responsible. Now, how I get in it? Why am I
Right.
always in it? And so she has to figure out, like, what does this mean? I
Right.
initially had a hard time seeing her not be a mother.
Yeah, that was honestly, that was, like,
But
tough for me.
But I had to think about the fact that these women were just told they had
Had to have
to be
kids. They had
mothers,
to have heirs,
and not
yeah.
every woman is meant to be a mother. Not every woman is maternal. Not every woman wants that life. And it was just so hard for me to see her not be a good mom. And that's something that I also had to sit with in watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where
Mm,
it was just like this bitch ain't never with her kids. And the woman who plays her, Rachel Brosnahan, was like, no one ever says that about her husband though, because he doesn't spend any time with those kids as well. When you work, you work. And no, and she's like, I like that my character is not this helicopter mom because working mothers don't get to be like that in real
right.
life. But
Right.
it's still a thing for me. Like I hated that he had so much more of a connection with his nanny than with her.
Yeah.
I hated
Right.
that she's not a good mom,
A
quote
good
unquote.
mom. But it and it's also, like, to your point too, she didn't like him. She didn't like her husband. So I can't imagine so, like, Violet's situation is different, where Violet was in love with her husband. They had a great love, and so, like, they had all these kids, and, like, she loved her kids. She had a loving relationship with her father, so she saw parenthood in a different way. I could also imagine and project or assume that, she didn't have she probably felt like her mother wasn't a great mother, and so she didn't wanna be her mom, right? So I feel like all of that probably came into play, and then you have Charlotte, who's all duty, and so, yeah, she's producing heirs, and she loved her husband, but she also had a duty to, 1, protect her husband, be this thing for him, you know what I mean? So she probably didn't have the wherewithal to also be that for her children.
I have a note
I just
about
you know what
that
I mean?
in the last episode as well. Of we'll get there, but I made that same note of we only
Yeah,
have so much energy.
yeah. You
What
can
our
only give so much.
Yeah, we only have so much of a capacity, but I
And
like
even Lady sorry to cut you, but even Lady Danbury said, she was like, "Is he gonna put another one of his fat babies in me?" Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I just don't think that she had the
I
intimacy of
didn't
being a
want to
mother.
yeah, especially not,
Mm.
and then the prospect of having to be a mother again later in the
Oof.
series. And she was
Oof.
like, bitch, I know
I
you
can't do
want
that.
me.
I
She said,
can't be
oh, why are
away.
you doing that?
Mm-mm.
I like that we're see she's a full character. Lady Danbury is a full character. She talks about being raised from age 3 to serve this man, and now this man is gone, and she needs to figure out who she is. And I like
Mhm.
the solitude. I think that there's something really beautiful about a woman getting the opportunity to have solitude in her life.
Mm,
It's incredibly significant, and maybe I say this as a woman who that was just my path, right? I remember
mm,
watching Jane Fonda's documentary and really hating that the chapters were broken up by the different men that she was with. I hate
mm,
that that was how, like, I can break my life up into before New York, after New York, right?
right.
And I don't judge her for it because for some women, men are a really significant part of their life.
Mhm,
Romantic partnership has not been such a significant part of my life. It was a part of my life I wasn't even looking at in therapy for a long time, which separate
mhm,
conversation for another video. So I think that it's important for people, but especially for women who we are socialized out the womb to be desirable, to be chosen,
mm,
to bend yourself and contort yourself to be what a man wants.
mhm.
And when you don't get the opportunity, I've never had the opportunity. I've never been with a man that I actually wanted to marry or have kids with.
You said that,
No one's
yeah.
ever made me. So I was always like, how y'all know y'all want to be married? I've never,
Face.
how do
How do you know?
like, I would say it because it was what was expected, right? But
Mhm. We're
in
socialized. We're
yeah, but in
socialized to that,
reality, I've
yeah.
never been with anyone that made me feel so safe that it was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I could do this every day forever."
Rest my life.
Never had that experience, right? So I
Mhm,
have had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with myself, and I think it's significant for my growth. So I like that she was taking this time to herself to just explore her property, and then boom, she ran into some dick. What
and ran into the right dick.
ran into the
Ran into the right one. She
and
ran
I
into
was
that
just
man that
like,
said, "May I have your hands?"
can this be foreshadowing for my life?
Okay, but the only thing is, was that
Available,
he
available,
yeah,
available,
that was the only thing that I did
available.
not like. I did not like that she was given the opportunity to be loved in a way that she wanted to be and couldn't fully take advantage of it because he wasn't available.
Yeah.
I also didn't like that it was an affair. It was a one-off affair because it was such a beautiful, like, he was teaching her how to see things and see things that were unseen, right? Like, I love that he
And
was
what is
giving her that.
again?
Yeah, like, I love that he was giving her that, and she could apply that outside of just her, like, whatever her situation was that she was going through. But I will say, we talk about this a lot when it comes to these shows, and I was looking at him like, so, is he attractive? I'm
No.
okay, I don't
That's not our kind of, right? He's not
No.
he's not our kind of, he doesn't give
No.
me the PQs.
No.
But I think there's something to there was the emotional availability that made him
Mm.
so attractive and so
It
appealing.
happens, yeah.
And I yeah, I
And he was, like, a little aggressive, honey, when he came to that house and said, "I ain't gonna come inside, but I'm coming inside."
listen. And
And
I
I like that.
also go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, I was gonna say, I like that when she saw the ceiling when she was having sex with him, it reminded her of, like, no, and she said this to Charlotte, where she was like, "I wouldn't know, I can show you what it looks like, but I've never done it for pleasure. So I can't tell you what it's supposed to feel like or what it's supposed to do." And then, like, she has this flashback moment of like, okay, but that was when I was messing with that man, right? Like, now I'm in a different situation where I feel free. I feel like I can be myself. And she's like, I'm going to take control of this and gets on top of him.
I was
And so I
literally
just,
about to say that. I was literally
yeah, I
about to
really love
say
that.
I was
Yeah.
very happy with like her having her sexual awakening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
so I think that even though no, this person wasn't fully available to her, there was
He
something
gave her that moment.
there was something
Or
about
she discovered that
character
moment.
development. There's
Yeah.
character
Yeah.
development. She was grieving.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, she was grieving a loss that she was kind of happy about.
Right.
And she had a need that he fulfilled, and
And
not
an itch to be
and it is
scratched.
to be scratched,
Because imagine not knowing that sex can be enjoyable
right?
your
Right.
entire life. Just like, I wouldn't know what that is. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't want to know what that gives. But
Well,
I don't like how he brought the kid to break it off.
I want to be clear. I don't think that was intentional. Violet is a very, why can't I? Well,
Right.
I don't think Violet was going to take no for
And
an
he ain't gonna tell her no. And he ain't
He's
gonna
not
tell her
gonna tell
no.
her no. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that it was also like he was protecting her from her
And
own.
I think she liked Lady Danbury.
She loved Lady Danbury.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think she really liked her. So I feel like she probably
It
was like,
was,
oh, can I come too? You know, like,
yeah,
yeah,
it was real
yeah,
recognized, real like
yeah.
it's a bad bitch. What's going on here?
Right.
I
Or
like
even at the ball, like the last episode at the ball where she's like, oh, look, it's my sis.
it.
But yeah, I really, okay. So when you put it like that, I guess then that makes it feel a little bit more, because I was Lady Danbury when she showed up behind that man. Like, what the hell is she doing here, bitch? And Coral being like, well, you know, your cape is a good blanket for the ground too, if you need to be alone. I said, okay,
Coral
Coral,
hot in
baby.
the ass. I want to know Coral's story too, because I know
Me
Coral
too. I
is
need a side story. And also, like, she's like, I don't gossip, but telling all the tea,
right.
all the tea. And
And
can we talk about how Lady Danbury still, when her and Charlotte actually consummated their friendship, I thought that was a very, very beautiful moment. And I loved how she stuck to that's my friend, right? Like, no matter what I got going through, my house is in trouble. I'm losing my fortune. I don't know what my future holds. I don't know what the certainty is. I'm still not going to like sell out my sis.
you know what it is? It's emotional responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go to her with these issues when she's with child. Some may write about her man, and I don't know what's right about
Mm,
it. She got her own stuff going on. Let
right.
me try to figure this out on my
Well,
own.
I
But
can.
she
Yeah.
talks to the solicitor. The solicitor is like, babe, you need to rely on the kindness of a stranger, of a
Of
family
a man.
member. You need the comfort of a man. Like, unfortunately, Adolphus, Charlotte started writing to George as he
I
was just like, I
know.
gotta get the fuck up. Like, let me go back to where I was. She's writing to George. She's not hearing back. She is completely alone here. And now the princess knows that she's pregnant. So she done moved in. So
And stressing her the fuck out.
listen, so she's not even alone anymore. Right?
Right.
It's like, damn,
But
it's
alone.
solitude, but you're
She alone, but
alone.
alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
even with the painting of paint her skin
Mm.
lighter. And it's just like, if this was Game of Thrones, you'd be beheaded.
But bitch, you can't talk to me like that because I'm still a queen.
In my
I did think it was interesting that she said that, because if you look at old portraits of Charlotte, she is very pale in some of those paintings, where you're kind of like, well, was she black?
which is
Right?
which is IRL.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to some podcasts
Podcast.
about, were there black people in this period? Did they,
Mm-hmm.
whatever? And there is this thing of like, look at what we have to rely on as source material.
Mm-hmm.
How, like this person's skin was painted this certain kind, you know what I mean? And it's
Or if you do see the darker character or darker characters or whatever in the paint, they're like off in the corner. They're still wearing like, and if you break it down by like what we've learned in school and like looking at symbolism and stuff, you look at their garments, they got to be royalty, because you wouldn't be wearing that,
something's
right?
there, right?
Something's there, but
Right.
we don't know your story because you're black. Why would we know your
Yeah.
story?
So
Right?
they don't
Yeah.
have like the recorded, documentation and everything. And so Charlotte is pregnant and ultimately alone and reaches out to her brother. And her brother is like, what
No.
you're asking is treason. And like, I don't think
And
you
she couldn't even tell
understand.
him.
Yeah.
And she couldn't even tell him why. She's just
Yeah.
like, I want to go home.
Yeah. And like, you don't even fully understand the position that you're putting everyone in. So then you decide that you're going to make an escape to Lady Danbury's house. And she's, baby, you can't stay here.
You can't stay in this house.
It
I
was, it
loved
was
that.
Goodfellas. It was Goodfellas. It was, you got to go home.
You gotta go home, baby.
You
You
got to
gotta
go
go
home.
home. You gotta go. Look, what's his name? Al. Look at me. I can't do it. They're nagging. I can't do it.
With this,
You gotta go home.
you got to go
You
home.
gotta go home. And the thing is like, I do love that Adolphus was starting to pick up that something wasn't right with his sister, though. And that's what happens when you have siblings that you're close to, right? Because even at dinner, like, he's having that conversation with, and I don't know if this was 5 or 6, but they're having that dinner, and he's like
the eyes,
looking at
the
her,
eyes
you know
shifting
what I'm
back.
saying? Like,
She can't fake it.
yeah,
Charlotte can't even fake it.
anything, none of it. Couldn't. Remember, Lady Danbury said that to her. She's like, okay, so you just said you lied really bad about being happy in your marriage. You can't do that in public. Like you can do that with me, but you can't do
Let's
that with
work on your
everybody else.
inflection. Let's work on your emphasis. Let's work on your emoting.
Right. It's
You're a
not
bad
working out.
liar.
You're a
You're a
bad
bad
liar,
liar.
honey. And so I really liked, even though we're seeing Charlotte go through this immense amount of pain, because I can't imagine being pregnant and the fact that she didn't lose the baby was so interesting to me, because what the fuck? Like, I just can't imagine that kind of stress of just like
Here's
not
what,
knowing what's going on.
and you know what that made me think about? We know that she has 15 kids. We don't know how many pregnancies she had.
Oof.
And so that was something that I kept thinking about the whole time as well, of like, damn, I hope don't nothing happen to this baby.
Right. The
And
whole time.
whole time. And so we see Brimsley keeps trying to snap into action. He's making these adjustments for if the king has an episode, just bring him back. She can't go through this alone. And Reynolds is like, bro, you don't understand.
You don't know what's
This
going
shit
on.
ain't like Reynolds can't even really get to him. Reynolds is trying to deliver these letters, and he's just like, nigga, blink twice if you want me to help.
Right.
And Reynolds, they done kick Reynolds fuck out. Like
Reynolds was going through it, bro. Reynolds was really going through it in this episode. He was really, and like you could see the pain in his eyes and in his face. And I felt so bad because I'm like, I can't imagine, because even though he's your king, they're like besties, right? Like Brimsley is Charlotte's best friend.
Let me say something. Watching someone that you love and care for suffer in
Hearing it.
Hearing
Oh.
about it, seeing about it, knowing that they're in a state and you can't do anything about it is helpless as shit. Like it's one of the worst feelings to see someone you love in emotional and mental turmoil and you can't do anything about it. Awful. And
It was,
so
and even like when they were like gossiping, like the boys were gossiping outside of the castle, like the help. I'm sorry, I don't know what you would call them, but the guards or like the help or whatever were gossiping about it. And Reynolds was like, yo, get y'all's asses back to work. Or like, did you hear something? And they were like, no, sir. Then what are you talking about? Right? Like, it was just like, I really, and then to like not be able to tell the man that you love what's going on.
yeah.
Because of your duty, right?
Yeah.
And because they both are like protecting each of them, it's like she's going through this. I can't tell you what's going on with her. But then when he went to him with the letters, like, yo, she wants to leave, bro. Because, and the only reason why he opened it was because it wasn't addressed to George. And he was like, okay, so what's she talking about? Like, what's she bringing her brother for? And then he's like, yo, do you understand what this means? She wants to leave. Like, this is going to fuck us all up. Like, what's going on? And so,
But
episode 5 was a really good build.
She also took the precaution of let me protect you, Brimsley, because you'll be blamed.
You got to stay here.
Stay here.
Yeah. She's like, you stay here.
That was really significant and special. Yeah. And like, oh, so she does like care for him. I also have a note. I'm sorry. Little Lord Danbury is one of the most beautiful kids I've ever seen in my life.
He was so cute.
I want to put him in my purse and carry him around. He's so cute.
His little accent was
oh my God. Little British kids, a little kid with an accent, it's just like, get out of here.
First of all, little kids are funny as hell, because why you got them little pants on? You know what I mean? Like, why you got them little clothes on? And then he was like, Lord Danbury. And I said, you know what? And then the fucking princess. He was a very handsome child. Oh, did I meet the new Lord? Did I meet the new Lord Danbury? And I'm like, okay, you slick bitch. And I love how Lady Danbury kept slipping it in.
Yeah.
You know, when you met the new Lord when you met him, I loved that.
Let me tell you something. That little boy set my uterus aflutter.
Beautiful skin. Beautiful skin. Very cute kid.
I can't.
Yeah. I love that he was in there though. And that she had that conversation with him about like, I'm your mom. She's like, I'm sorry. I know we're not close.
But at the end,
like,
she tells him who he is. That you come to this place in the Sierra Leone and you are this person, and don't you ever fucking forget who you are. And don't let nobody make you forget who you are.
I love that.
Like, I remember my mom, like, having conversations with me like that, and, you know, we don't come from, like, you know, we ain't come from kings, we came from whoever.
We from the kings of Atlanta.
Yeah, hey!
We from the kings of Queens.
So, I really love those scenes of her at
Me
least
too.
trying to mother in as much as she knows how to. So, Charlotte eventually just says, like, I'm about to pull up
I
on my man, I'm
love
sitting beside him.
that.
And it was one of those, like, I'm her moments. Very like Daenerys when she revealed to that man that she fully spoke High
Ooh,
Valyrian. It was like that. It was
that
like
was my above his tongue. What are you saying? Are you dumb? I'm familiar. Are
I
you?
know
No, that was dope. I really like that too. And it goes back to first of all, that's the second time she pulled up on him and said, I'm not doing this shit. And it goes back to the point where I said I like that quote earlier where he was like, she's almost as mad as I am. That whole monologue that it's very brief, but that whole little line or two that he had with Reynolds talking about Charlotte. And he was like, did you see how she was yesterday? Like she showed up unannounced during her honeymoon, breaking all decorum. You know what I mean? Like he breaks down what she does and he's like, she's beautiful, she's wonderful. Because that's the type of person that she is. And it's like, how can you be like that and you know what's at stake, right? But she's very full of herself and her power. And I love that Lady Danbury came to that realization too in episode 5, that she also got to understand, like truly in episode 6 with Adolphus. But in episode 5, she's like, okay, I got to get myself together. After she talks to the princess, she's like, okay, you're right. I can't
so
be in here
that
crying.
actually is in episode 6, and we'll get
Is
to
it?
that. That was
Okay.
one of my favorite scenes
Yeah. That
upon
was good.
this watch. So we can close out episode 5. My only other note, you know, of course, like they send the doctor away and move into Q, and I really
Why wasn't he killed?
bit because this isn't Game of Thrones. We've watched too much Game of Thrones.
And this isn't Henry. This isn't Henry. It's
This is where
George
he
and
was just
Charlotte.
lopping off heads left and
You
right.
got it.
He was like,
You
I
got
don't
it.
like you, so like, you know, whatever.
Scram. Right. I got
Get
you. I
out of
heard you.
here. This isn't
All
that.
right.
This is a Netflix show. This isn't The Last Kingdom.
Show.
This isn't, you know, like I'm with you.
Cause I'm like, baby, I would have, and she said it too. She's like, you're lucky that I don't have you killed. I would have had him murdered on sight. Like
What it is.
when I walk into that room and I see my husband like that.
Make it look unsheathing someone else's sword.
Dog.
We're done.
That was crazy.
I really loved the desperation in this scene of her trying to bring him back.
Hold the baby.
That was desperate. The baby brought him back. The desperation. Okay, so we're in the finale. We have made it.